This video presentation narrates a walk that the Blanchard River Watershed Partnership did on the Little Riley Creek in the fall of 2010. We are going to be reporting on different portions of the creek and basically walking from the mouth of the creek upstream. There are a couple of things that we need to kind of point out here. We're going to use a couple of terms that may be unfamiliar. First is the word riparian corridor. That is the section directly on the banks of the creek, and we're going to describe what that looks like. And also substrate, and that would be the material that's on the bottom of the creek bed. We'll be giving descriptions of that and showing some interesting things that we found throughout our walk. The first section of Little Riley starts at the mouth, where Little Riley dumps into the Riley and proceeds upstream to Elm Street. This is mostly a residential area, with also the Mennonite Memorial Home being a corporation that this flows through. This photograph shows the beginning of Section 1 in Little Riley. This is the bridge at Riley Street in Bluffton. This section shows lots of heavy man-made changes, including some channelization and bank alteration. Moving upstream, we come to Section 2 of Little Riley, which runs from Elm Street to Campus Drive, also in Bluffton. This is mostly, again, residential area. However, the majority of this section flows through Bluffton University. There's actually 5 subsections of this Section 2, which we'll look at individually. This first subsection of Section 2 is 264 feet in length. It has 1 or 2 good bends in it. The riparian area is fairly narrow, with mostly trees on both sections, and it flows again through a suburban area. This is the second subsection moving upstream in Section 2 of Little Riley. The segment length is 317 feet, and again there is some man-made changes, including a few bridges and some bank alteration. The riparian corridor in this area is actually wide, with some trees on both sides of the stream. It also has very little flow, as most of the sections in Little Riley do. This is the third subsection in Section 2. The segment length is 582 feet. As you can see from the picture, there is no water in the stream at this point, as there is rarely ever flow in this portion of the creek. So a lot of the things we had to assume, there probably would be a riffle area in this section if there would have been water. This is just an example of some of the erosion in this subsection that we saw. Again, moving upstream, we come to subsection 4 of Section 2. The segment length is 317 feet long. The picture in this photograph is of the College Avenue Bridge. There's a lot of heavy man-made changes in this section. The site there, the section is very straight. There's bridges, channelization, and some bank alteration throughout the section. We've come to our last subsection in Section 2. Again, this is flowing through Bluffton University. This section length is 950 feet. The riparian area is narrow to the south, and it's wide to the north with lots of trees. The site is mostly shaded, and again, the land use is mostly suburban. There is little or no flow in portions of this section. Alright, we have come to Section 3 of Little Riley. The beginning of this section, as we look upstream, is actually located in town, and as we move further upstream, we will actually see quite a bit of farm land that we will travel through. There are 7 different subsections of this section. This is the first subsection of Section 3. One thing I did not mention in the last slide is this entire section spans from Bentley Road to 9945 North Dixie Highway. In this subsection, we saw lots of observable fish cover, and there's a few wiggles in this section. It's 317 feet. This next subsection would be subsection 2 of section 3 of Little Riley. It runs primarily through the Johnny Appleseed Mater Metro Park, so that offers something unique. The riparian area is wide with trees and overgrown fields to the south, and it's partly shaded. There's also very little, if no, water in most of this section at the time we did the observation. Subsection 3 is very short at 106 feet, and the riparian area is very wide with trees and bushes before coming to overgrown fields. So at this point, the creek has actually entered mostly farm land. This is subsection 4 of section 3 of Little Riley. And this section is 792 feet long. The substrate is mostly small. There's very little, if no, flow or water in portions of the creek, and the riparian area is wide with trees and bushes before coming to row crop land. Coming into subsection 5, you can see that we have a substrate change where the substrate is now mostly bedrock with some broken pieces throughout. There's very, very low water levels in the majority of this creek, and the riparian area is wide with trees and bushes, again before cropland. This is subsection 6 of section 3 of Little Riley. As you can see, there's more water in this section. The substrate is very fine. There's no smothering or silting. The site is mostly natural, and the riparian area is wide with trees and bushes on both sides. There are no riffle areas in this portion of Little Riley. Now we've come to the last subsection, subsection 7 of section 3 of Little Riley. This section has many man-made changes, even though it is in the country. The riparian area is narrow, with a row of trees and bushes to the north and little to no cover in on the south. It is partially shaded, and the land use is cropland and residential as well. This slide and the next 4 slides show some conditions that we found along the entire section 3 of Little Riley. Most of them are major log jams. There's also a photograph of some green water that was unique to this section as well. We have reached section 4 of Little Riley. This section goes from 9945 North Dixie Highway to the crossing at Tom Fett Road. We start off this section in a residential area, and we move upstream into, again, some farmland and crop use. This is the first subsection of section 4. In this section there's quite a bit of observable fish cover, like underwater tree roots and other things. The riparian area is medium wide, with forest on the north and row crops to the south. The site is about knee deep with no flow at all. This is subsection 2 of section 4 of Little Riley. The subsection before this was quite long at 686 feet, and this section is only 211 feet. As you can see, there is no water in this section, and the riparian area is medium wide with forest on the north and row crops to the south. This is subsection 3 of Little Riley section 4. It is 634 feet in length. The site has 2 or more good bends. It's mostly natural, and the riparian area is medium wide with forest on the north and row crops to the south. This is subsection number 4. It is a very long section at 1,373 feet. It has no water, so riffle areas could not be determined. The riparian area is wide with forest on both sides, and it's mostly shaded with a combination of eroding and stable banks. This is Little Riley subsection 7. We currently do not have data for subsections 5 and 6. This section is 370 feet in length. It's mostly straight with a few wiggles. It's mostly natural, and the riparian area is medium wide with forests in the north, row crops to the south, and a combination of stable and raw banks. Now we're at subsection 8 of Little Riley section 4, and again we don't have any water, so some of our data had to be inferred, but there seems like there would be quite a bit of fish cover would there be water. The site is mostly straight, and the riparian area is narrow to wide, with a band of trees and shrubs before row crops. It's partly shaded, and there is raw and collapsing banks on both sides. The segment length is 264 feet in length. This is subsection 9 of section 4. Again, there are no water levels present in the stream. There is some observable fish cover, such as down trees, down logs, etc. The riparian area is narrow, with a band of trees and bushes before row crops, and the site has a few man-made changes. This is the last subsection of section 4 of Little Riley. The section length is 211 feet. The riparian area is narrow, with a band of trees and bushes before row crops. The site is partially shaded, and again there is a combination of stable and eroding banks. Where there is water in this section, it is very shallow, 2 inches or less. This slide and the next quite a few slides show the conditions that we found along the entire section 4 of Little Riley. Most of them are eroding banks that were unique in this portion of the Little Riley because of its high flashiness. The next section looking upstream would be section 5 of Little Riley. It has 4 different subsections, and the majority of this section is lightly residential but mostly farmland and row crop use. This is the first subsection of section 5. The segment length is 370 feet. There is no riparian area because there's a mowed yard and a few bushes to the southeast and cropland to the north. There is no shading. The banks are stable. The site is chest deep and there is no flow. This is the second subsection of section 5 of Little Riley. The segment length is 317 feet. Again, there is no riparian area or riparian corridor. The site is mostly straight with a few wiggles, and the site is knee-deep with no flow. This is subsection 3 of section 5. The site has a length of 158 feet. It has 1 or 2 good bends. This section shows many man-made changes, including channelization and bank alteration. The riparian area is narrow, and it contains a filter strip before cropland, and the site is calf deep with little to no flow. This is subsection 4 of section 5. The segment length is 264 feet. The site is mostly straight with a few wiggles. Portions of this section show lots of man-made changes, others few man-made changes. The riparian area is narrow with shrubs, trees, and overgrown fields. And the banks are a combination of stable and eroding. Section 5 of Little Riley has 2 more additional subsections, but we do not have information for those subsections at this time. This is the last section of Little Riley, section 6, and it spans from Lugabille Road to Phillips Road. The entire section runs through the Bluffton golf course, and that provides some unique aspects to this section. This is the first subsection of section 6. The length is 264 feet. There's quite a bit of observable fish cover, including down trees and branches and shallow areas, etc. The riparian area is narrow with trees and bushes. The site is mostly shaded. Land use is forested at this point, and the site is about knee deep, or 12 inches. This is subsection 2 of Little Riley section 6. The segment length is 317 feet. Again, there's quite a bit of observable fish cover. The riparian area is narrow with trees and bushes to the north and south, and the land use is suburban. This is where we enter the portion of the golf course, and there are a few different riffle areas, and they are ankle to calf deep. This is subsection 3 of section 6 of Little Riley. As you can see, there is some water in the stream. The riparian area is non-existent with mowed grass all the way up to the stream itself. As you can see from this slide, we currently do not have data for subsection 4 of Little Riley section 6. This is subsection 5. The segment length is 950 feet. There's quite a bit of observable fish cover. If you notice here, there is now a very small riparian area on each side, and the banks are a combination of stable and eroding. This is subsection 6 of Little Riley section 6, and the segment length is 950 feet. The site depth is about 12 inches with little to no flow. The riparian area is narrow to wide with shrubs followed by grass, and the site is mostly shaded, and there is quite a bit of observable fish cover in this area as well. This is the last subsection of Little Riley that we will be reporting on. We are ending at Phillips Road. This segment length is 950 feet long, and the riparian area is narrow to none at this point with shrubs and grass. Again, golf course coming directly up to the creek itself. The site is knee to chest deep at 6 to 36 inches, and there are lots of man-made changes in this section. This slide and the next slide both show conditions in Little Riley 6. The first one here is an algal bloom that's located within the golf course, and the next one is a log jam that was also found within the golf course itself.